The tale kicks off with Will Serford, a guy born without magic in a world where magic is everything. Being magicless meant he was treated worse than a doormat, often lonely, awkward, and struggling to fit in. Yet, he had a childhood friend he adored, but she moved on because Will couldn't pull off even a simple card trick, let alone real magic. Despite the odds, Will enrolled in a prestigious university, determined to win her back, but his efforts mostly earned him a front-row seat to the bullying show. One day, Will's luck turns around when the headmaster notices something special about him. He's a natural warrior with a sword. Will dives into training to become the strongest swordsman around. His first big test comes in a high-level dungeon where he faces off against a giant beast that throws magic spells like confetti at a parade. But Will, quick as a cat, dodges every attack and with a single stylish slash, slices the beast clean in half. The next morning, he drags himself to class. In class, Professor Edward is yammering on about alchemy and how to make sulfur for explosives. Will, however, is snoozing in the back, dreaming of slaying more monsters. Edward calls on him, but Will's snoring could probably be heard across campus until Edward shouts his name. Will jolts awake, more startled than a cat in a room full of rocking chairs. Edward, with a look of disgust sharper than a dragon's tooth, asks Will to demonstrate what they just learned. With no way out, Will nervously takes out his wand and tries to summon flames. But alas, not even a spark. The class bursts into laughter as if Will were performing stand-up comedy. Edward, unimpressed, wonders how Will could be so good at theory but so hopeless at practical magic. Enter Cyan, the red-haired show-off who waves his wand and effortlessly creates flames, producing sulfur like he's making popcorn. Will, still cringing from his earlier failure, cowers behind the desk. Edward warns the class that magic is the only thing that matters in this world. If you can't control magic, you might as well pack your bags and leave. After class, Cyan and his goons decide to rub salt in Will's wounds. They taunt him, saying he might be good at killing dungeon monsters, but that won't help him here. Just then, Will's childhood friend Colette steps in, telling Cyan to back off. Cyan, trying to save face, mutters that kindness and hard work are useless without magic, then slinks away with his cronies. Colette tells Will not to worry, but Will just gazes up at the sky, reminiscing about how it used to be covered in darkness before 5 legendary mages, the Magiavanders, battled evil spirits and brought back the light. Will remembers a promise he made to another childhood friend, Elfie, that they would both become Magiavanders someday. Elfie, blessed with incredible talent, became the youngest Magiavander in history, while Will was left chasing after a dream that seemed further away with each passing day. Later, Will meets with Professor Werkner, who immediately yells at him for diving into a level 7 dungeon all alone. Werkner warns him that one day his recklessness will get him killed, but Will, ever the optimist, asks if he'll get any credit for his troubles. Werkner sighs and gives him 2 credits, but then reminds Will that if he wants to become a Vander, he needs to be admitted into the Upper Institute, which requires a lot of credits in spellwork, writing, and fighting. Unfortunately, without any spellcasting ability, Will's chances are as slim as a wand without a core. Will, determined as ever, says he'll keep trying. Werkner tells him he needs 4 more credits by the end of the week, which sends Will into a panic. Werkner mentions a monster called Baskerville on the 6th floor of the dungeon that hasn't been defeated yet. Will, ever the eager beaver, hugs his teacher and rushes off. But little do they know, Cyan overhears the conversation and decides to head into the dungeon himself, planning to slay the monster before Will does and get him kicked out of the academy for not having enough credits. That evening, Will and his familiar, Kiki, enter the dungeon. Will asks Kiki to sniff out the monster, but Kiki, still smarting from a previous encounter with a similar beast, is less than enthusiastic. Meanwhile, Cyan and his cronies are also on the 6th floor, determined to beat Will to the punch. One of Cyan's underlings, sporting pink hair and a doubtful expression, wonders if it's smart for just 3 mages to take on this challenge. Cyan, puffing out his chest, assures them he's one of the best mages in the class and can handle it. But just as they're getting cocky, a huge monster appears and turns one of Cyan's cronies into wall art with a single punch. Cyan freezes in terror, while the pink-haired underling screams like they've seen a ghost. Will, hearing the scream, rushes to the scene with the speed of a cheetah on roller skates. He rounds the corner to see Cyan firing off weak flame blasts at a monster that seems more annoyed than injured. Will recognizes the creature as a sentinel, a beast worth 10 credits, and wonders what it's doing in this floor of the dungeon. For a moment, Will thinks about letting Cyan get what's coming to him, remembering all the time Cyan made his life miserable. But then, he recalls Elfie's words, that he's the kindest person she knows, and how she gave him a pair of glasses to remind him of who he really is. Will puts on the glasses, just as the monster is about to squash Cyan like a bug, and leaps into action, blocking the monster's attack and saving Cyan's life. Back at the academy, Edward bursts into Werkner's office, panicking because Cyan and his lackeys went into the 6th floor without permission. Werkner, ever the cool cucumber, reassures Edward that Will is on the same floor. In the dungeon, Will is battling the monster, dodging attacks and slicing off a finger before finally landing a fatal blow right through its neck. Cyan, watching in shock, can't believe what he's seeing. Meanwhile, back at the academy, Edward is stunned by Will's abilities. Werkner explains that while Will may lack magic, he's got superhuman strength, the heart of a dwarf, and a brain that can learn any attack pattern after just one look. They watched as Will managed to slice off the monster's arm and then calmly strolled over to the giant sword lying on the ground. With ease, he picked up the sword, making it look like it was a toy. Werkner told Edward that in a world full of magic and wizards, Will was the only true warrior. The monster shot an energy beam from its mouth, but Will blocked it with the giant sword and then swung it, chopping the monster into little pieces. The monster fell to the ground, as motionless as a statue. Will then walked over and offered Cyan a helping hand, who was still stunned. Edward couldn't believe his eyes and yelled at Werkner, claiming that someone without magic could never surpass a magician. Edward stormed out of the room, while Werkner realized Edward must be on a big dose of denial. Werkner knew that Will's story was going to become legendary, as he was about to turn the world upside down by blending wand and sword magic in Wistoria. That night, Will remembered how everyone had laughed at him when he joined the academy because he had no magic. He was bullied and called a loser, with people saying he only got in because of his friendship with Elfie, the Magia Vander. Those comments hurt him deeply and led him into a dark place. One day, the principal called Will and Werkner for a meeting. She examined Will, puzzled about how he got into such a prestigious academy. Instead of dismissing him, she decided to give him a chance. She used her flotation magic to hurl a dagger at Will, who caught it effortlessly, as if he was born to wield it. Werkner was a bit confused, but the old hag was confident. She surrounded Will with magical circles and prepared to shoot fireballs at him, which scared Werkner because he thought it might be the end of Will. But Will didn't miss a beat. He slashed through all the magic circles in one smooth motion and landed back on his feet. Werkner fell over in shock, while the old hag laughed and declared that Will was meant to wield a sword, not a wand. She decided that Will could stay at the academy and Werkner would be his guardian, as Will had no parents. Werkner asked if it was safe for a boy with no magic to be in a magic university, but the old hag confidently said Will would manage. Tears welled up in Will's eyes as he asked if he could ever become strong enough without magic to be a Magia Vander and reunite with Elfie. The old hag smiled and said that if Will had unwavering determination and a strong will to fight, he still had a chance. This reignited Will's determination to become the strongest in the world. The next morning, he woke up groggy but headed to class. Werkner explained how the academy worked. To become a Magia Vander, they first had to qualify to study at the Upper Institute, which was the path to becoming the strongest mages and ruling from the top. To reach the Upper Institute, they needed either to create a new magic spell or accumulate at least 7,200 credits, which was extremely tough. Werkner warned them not to even dream about it since none of them were getting enough credits to graduate. That day, Werkner drilled them with extra lessons, leaving Will completely drained. Will met up with Colette, who asked if Werkner's class was very hard. Will sighed, saying they had repeated many lessons and had tons of homework, all because they lacked credits. Colette said she liked Werkner for at least trying to help the students, unlike Edward, who would have just let them fail. Will laughed as they reached a corner and heard a commotion. They peeked around and saw Cyan and his followers surrounded by students, who were praising Cyan for defeating the sentinel monster worth 10 credits all by himself. Everyone was shocked and impressed, but Cyan was stressed because he knew the truth that Will had actually defeated the monster while Cyan was lying on the floor like a ragdoll. Cyan's anger flared when he saw Will walking by with Colette. He shoved everyone out of the way and grabbed Will by the collar, insisting that what happened couldn't be true since Will was supposedly talentless. Colette immediately defended Will and told Cyan to let him go. Cyan, grinding his teeth, released Will and stormed off with his goons. Colette asked if something had happened, but Will lied and said it was nothing. Meanwhile, Edward went to the Grandmaster's office and argued that Will should be expelled. The Grandmaster was relaxed and asked why. Edward claimed that Will, a warrior without magic, was trying to surpass magicians, which he thought was unacceptable. The Grand Master smiled and said it would be very cruel to expel Will in his final year. She opened a register filled with student information and noted that Will had good marks in writing and was earning credits consistently, despite lacking magic. She said this made him an outstanding student, as he was keeping up with and even outperforming others despite a major disadvantage. The Grand Master said that even if Will couldn't become a Magiavander, he could become a scholar or a healer and help others. Edward argued that Will wanted to be a Magiavander, and that was the problem. The Grand Master agreed that it could be an issue and told Edward to design a test for Will. She gave Edward full control over how and where the test would be conducted. If Will passed, he could stay at the academy. If he failed, Edward could expel him. Edward, smirking, agreed and left with a smile. Will, oblivious to the plan, continued with his day. Colette helped him open his locker, which could only be opened with magic, something Will lacked. Colette saw Will's sword inside the locker, which he couldn't carry at school, and felt sorry for him. They then entered the library, where Will began revising magic history and learning about other races. Colette told him he was already the best at writing and shouldn't stress too much. Will, however, knew that losing even a single credit could jeopardize his chance of qualifying for the Upper Institute. He enjoyed reading about the war between dwarves and humans, where the warrior dwarves stood their ground even though mages were superior skills. Before they could talk more, Edward appeared behind them like a shadowy figure and told Will to meet him in the exam hall, alone. Will followed him without a word. When they arrived, Edward said Will should take a test. If Will landed even a single blow on Edward, he would receive 5 credits for spell work. But if he failed, he would be expelled from the academy. Edward claimed that someone who couldn't use magic shouldn't even think about becoming a Magiavander. Will was stunned, but Edward wasted no time. He conjured all his mana and created a magic circle beneath Will. Back at the academy, the headmaster called Werkner and showed him a TV where he saw Will facing off against Werkner. Will dodged the magic circles, which exploded, while Werkner relentlessly pursued him, shooting explosive magic. Will barely managed to escape, constantly running from the powerful mage. Werkner protested, saying it was too cruel and one-sided since Edward was one of the strongest mages in the kingdom and close to becoming a Magiavander himself. Edward used another dark explosion, which Will barely dodged. He was exhausted from all the running and realized he couldn't stay still. He ran with all his might, trying to land a spitting kick, but Edward blocked it with his magic shield and blasted Will away. Will, bleeding and battered, saw Edward through his blurry vision, realizing he was completely outmatched. Edward's defense and offense were flawless, and Will couldn't even scratch him. Will tries to get up again while Edward prepares to end the battle. He casts the same spell over and over, creating a wall of explosions that Will didn't even think was possible. Will starts running away, but the explosions keep knocking him around like a pinball, sending him flying and hurting his body until he collapses, nearly unconscious. He tries to rise, cursing his weak, magicless body and wishing he had his sword to defend himself. Meanwhile, Colette heads back to her locker, wondering what kind of lessons Edward is giving. She imagines Will being tortured with whips, which scares her when a gate opens. But it's just Kiki, who looks hurt and is bleeding. Kiki walks up to Will's locker and starts scratching at it, making Colette realize something must be wrong. Back in the exam hall, Will is on the floor while Edward stands over him, putting his foot on Will's head and demanding his surrender. Will pushes Edward's foot away and says he will never give up. He stands up again and tells Edward he will reach the pinnacle of magic with a sword in hand because he wants to fulfill a promise to the person he loves. This makes Edward even angrier as he prepares to finish the fight. Just then, Colette enters the hall and throws a sword to Will. He catches it and puts on his special glasses, ready to fight. Edward unleashes a barrage of magic, but Will effortlessly slices through it, shocking the mage. This only makes Edward angrier as he prepares to fire more explosions. Will, scared but determined, remembers the dwarf king who kept fighting despite his losses. He decides to do the same. He dodges Ed's attacks, jumps into the air, and charges towards Edward, breaking his barrier with his sword. They both come to a standstill, each with their weapon at the other's throat. Will breathes heavily with a wand in his face while Edward is stunned by a small cut on his cheek. Fuming with frustration, Edward walks away, telling Will he earned 5 credits. Will collapses to the ground, and Colette helps him up, wondering how many more mages he'll have to defeat to become the strongest. Will dreams about the day Elfie told him he was the kindest and bravest person she knew before giving him her special glasses as a parting gift. It was the day she had to go to the tower forever because she was already a Magi Evander. As she walked away, Will cried out her name, promising that he would reach the tower no matter what. He promised they would see the sunset together as they had promised in childhood. Elfie, tears in her eyes, wiped them away and told Will she would be waiting for him. After Elfie climbed the tower, Will was left alone and heartbroken. Professor Werkner tried to comfort him, but it only made him cry more. Will promised his professor that this would be the last time he would be a crybaby. Back in the present, Will is up early in the morning, delivering newspapers in the city. Just as he finishes, an old and bulky man named Donan greets him, urging him to do his best. Will hurries up a flight of stairs and trips, sending newspapers flying. But with lightning-fast reflexes, he grabs all but one. Will picks up the escaped newspaper, which has an article about Elfie. She has just created another type of magic and earned the title of being the first mage in history to create 12 types of magic. Will, fired up with determination, wants to stand by her side. The article also mentions an order from the Upper Institute, which has been issued by none other than Elfie. Panicking, Will runs to his dorm and asks his roommate, Rosti, to make a magic device for him. Rosti asks why Will is so excited, and Will explains about the order. He needs to procure cores from Frostwalkers on the 4th floor of the dungeon because Elfie needs them as catalysts. Rosti, already working on a magic item for Will, hands it to him. Will thanks him and heads out, but Rosti stops him to stuff bread into his mouth, reminding him to take care. When Will reaches the 4th floor of the dungeon, it's crowded with students hunting Frostwalkers for their cores. Just as Will is about to join in, a huge explosion shakes the ground. It was caused by Cyan's attack, which obliterated a bunch of Frostwalkers in one go. Cyan's lackeys flatter him, but he's not satisfied, thinking about the fight between Will and the giant monster, which fuels his rage and drives him to become stronger. Unaware of Cyan's true feelings, Will thinks Cyan is cool. Believing there's nothing left to hunt here, Will ventures deeper into the 4th floor, where he encounters giant penguin monsters. The monsters are hostile towards a girl, so Will draws his sword, puts on his special glasses, and lunges at them. With a few clean strikes, he defeats the penguin monsters and saves a nerdy girl who was about to be killed. The girl is stunned, unable to comprehend how Will defeated the monsters using a sword, not magic. Will approaches her, and the girl, Iris, thanks him for saving her life. She introduces herself as a 4th-year student at the academy. Meanwhile, Werkner is giving a lecture on the greatness of creating new magic spells. He says that new magic forms are named after their creators, and anyone who creates a new magic will etch their name in history. The students gossip about how this approach is impractical since only the top 0.1% can achieve it. Just then, a student named Rose asks Werkner if Elfie, who has created 12 new magic forms, is really that impressive. Werkner replies that she is beyond belief, calling Elfie one of the greatest mages in history. Colette remarks that Will's childhood friend is truly special. Rose teases Colette, asking if she's jealous Elfie might steal her crush away. Colette freaks out, and Werkner scolds her. Back in the dungeon, Will and Iris are walking. Iris has heard about the talentless bookworm from the 6th year and asks if Will doesn't feel any disdain. Will, hurt, asks her why she would look down on him. Iris says she respects him for his special talents, even without magic. Flustered, Will changes the topic to the order issued by Elfie. Iris says she wants to help the Magi Evander who holds up the sky. Her words remind Will that no one has seen the true sky. The 5 Magi Evander's immense magic power cloaks their world, keeping it safe. The false sky is a great barrier protecting them from invaders. Will is jolted from his thoughts when Iris mentions that she has met Elfie before. She recounts how she was once surrounded by nefarious monsters in the dungeon, waiting for her end. Then, all the monsters were frozen, and Elfie appeared, glowing like a goddess. Since then, Iris has admired Elfie. As Iris continues her story, Kiki catches Will's attention and leads him to a curious patch on the ground. Iris asks what he's doing, and Will shows her a large ice fragment left by the Frostwalkers. He deduces that a powerful Frostwalker is nearby and heads towards a cave, while Iris wonders how he can be so sure when she couldn't find any trace using her search magic. Will tells Iris that magic is impressive but not everything, especially in the dungeon. He adds that, besides magic, he also has some knowledge and experience. Iris doesn't see the importance of these things, but Will is on high alert because he knows what's coming next. A giant frost walker, hiding on the ceiling, is about to pounce on the unsuspecting Iris. But Will anticipates this and quickly moves her to safety. As the monster crashes to the ground, Will jumps out of the way just in time. Iris recognizes the giant ice monster with dozens of eyes as a Frost Rex, the highest evolved form of a frost walker. The Frost Rex roars loudly, and Iris remembers that it's worth 6 credits, making it a dangerous opponent. Meanwhile, the monster charges up an ice beam and fires it, but Will leaps out of the way just before it's covered with sharp ice spikes. He leaves Iris in a safe spot and heads towards the monster, but Iris stops him, saying that physical attacks won't work on a Frost Rex. Its power is so strong it can freeze even the toughest dwarves with just one touch. Will puts on the magic tool made by Rosti and tells Iris not to worry because he's beaten this monster many times before. He charges at the Frost Rex, dodging its ice beam by jumping up. He lands behind the Frost Rex and slides underneath it. The monster, unable to find Will, starts firing its ice beam randomly, forcing Iris and Kiki to run for cover. Will then circles the distracted monster and throws the magic tool over it, where it hooks onto the monster's side. Will slides under the monster again, tightening a strong rope around it. The rope digs into the monster's skin, completely restraining it. The furious monster continues to attack recklessly. As Will sets up for his final attack, he stands in front of the Frost Rex. The monster uses its cold breath, beginning to freeze Will's skin, but Will knows his plan is almost complete. The Frost Rex is weak to fire and explosions, exactly what he's about to use. Will creates friction on the magic tool, sending a swift flame down the rope to the bomb attached to it. The magic tool explodes, shattering the giant monster into bits. As smoke and steam clear, Will recoils from the blast, retrieves the ice core from the fallen monster, and heads back to Iris. She watches, stunned, as Will defeats the giant monster without using magic. Her expression changes as she realizes Will is more powerful than she thought. She wonders how to report this to her superiors. When Will suggests they head back, Iris resumes her act and accompanies him. Later, Iris reaches the White Tower and goes to the top room, where 4 of the 5 Magia Vanders are seated on their thrones. They are looking for skilled people to help prepare for the day the sky falls. Iris reports that she saw great talent in the magicless boy named Will, and recommends him for entry into the tower. 2 of the Magia Vanders strongly oppose this, but the white-haired one, Zoe, is interested. Elfie simply smiles to herself. Zoe is willing to let anyone skilled stand by his side, even a dwarf. However, the elf girl, Elle, is unhappy because elves believe dwarves are barbarians. Carrot, the redhead, stops them from fighting, saying they don't have to make a decision now. They can wait to see Will's performance in the upcoming Grand Festival. Everyone agrees and leaves, leaving only Elfie in the room. Iris was sent by Elfie herself and takes out the giant ice core Will sent her. She repeats her promise to wait forever for Will. The day of the grand examination finally arrives at the Magic Academy. Students gather in the hall, ready to fight for their points. Each student needs at least 7 out of 200 credit points to graduate, and the maximum credits are 12,000. Only those who reach this high score are allowed to train to become Magia Vanders, the highest-ranked mages in the world. The exam is supervised by a professor who has summoned giant metallic golems for the students to destroy. He watches as the students try to create the strongest magic spells to earn the most points. Cyan is among the first to attack the golems, using a powerful fire spell that spews solar flames, melting and disintegrating the golems with ease. Next up is Colette, who creates enormous boulders in the air. She uses a teleportation spell to drop them through magical portals onto the golems below, demolishing them. The supervisor announces that both she and Cyan have passed the minimum requirement and can now graduate. Will steps into the arena next, and students watch eagerly to see what he can do without magic. He holds a wand in one hand, which is useless to him since he can't cast spells. He runs toward the golem, preparing to throw a punch. The students mock him, taunting him for his plan. Unfortunately, he gets distracted by their jeers, and in the moment he looks away, the golem smacks him, sending him flying across the floor. He is seen as a bookworm with no street smarts and is called a loser by his peers. Next, Wignall, with green hair, and Liana, 2 top-ranked students, compete. They've already cleared the minimum credit points but aim for 12,000. Liana specializes in lightning spells, summoning several lightning bolts that hit the golems simultaneously, causing them to explode from the shock. Wignall, skilled in electric wind, uses the Zyro's Claw spell to create massive wind currents charged with electricity, lifting and crushing the golem. Both students surpass the 10,000 credit mark, placing them at the top. Julius, a student with superior ice powers, steps in next. With confidence, he casts ice bullets that fly across the room and hit all the golems. The ice bullets activate, erupting into giant ice structures that freeze the golems. Julius defeats not only his own golem but others as well. Before leaving, he challenges Wignall and Liana to a fight to prove who is superior. They accept his challenge by destroying his ice constructs. Due to his defeat, Will still hasn't reached his minimum target and sulks in a corner. With the Grand Magic Festival approaching, Colette sits with him during lunch to talk about it. The festival is held once every 2 years and features 4 factions: lightning, earth, fire, and ice. It allows students from all over to showcase their skills. Special recruiters from the faction towers come down to watch, and those who perform exceptionally are hired directly. Colette encourages Will to participate, suggesting it could be his chance to ascend into one of the towers and reunite with his childhood best friend. The High Mage, leader of all mages and factions, also attends the festival. Will should try to impress him for a direct entry into the Mage Towers. However, Will is still embarrassed from his previous performances, where he was ridiculed. To encourage him, Colette leads him to a seemingly normal door that hides a secret chamber. She picks up Kiki and commands it to break the magical lock on the barrier. Behind the door, they discover a spiral staircase leading down to a basement where students are gambling and placing big bets on who will win the competitions. Posters of top-performing students line the walls. They watch in shock as they see the secret activities happening there. Cian stands nearby, worried about his own performance since hardly anyone is betting on him. When he spots Will, he becomes furious. But Colette quickly steps in, stopping him and making him back off. His lackeys, eager to please, give him fake praise about his superiority, which only angers him more. He lashes out at them, and when the students downstairs notice, Cian runs out in a huff. After classes, Will heads to Gina's tavern for work. The place is mostly filled with miners and dwarves drowning their sorrows in drinks and food. His roommate, Rosti, has volunteered to help him, so he can get back to practice soon. The dwarves have accepted Will like family, and he respects them a lot, which is why he chose to work here. As the crowd in the tavern thins out, Will and Rosti are in the kitchen, cleaning up dishes. Will bends down to pick up a spoon that fell, just as Julius walks in. Julius looks around with disdain, calling the place disgusting. When he sees Will, he mocks both him and his job. One of the dwarves hears this and clenches his fist in anger while glaring at the ice elf. Julius notices and starts hurling insults, making derogatory comments about the entire dwarf community. He calls them low-life losers. The dwarves, who had migrated here after their home planet was destroyed by celestial beings, have faced mistreatment. Though allowed to live on this new planet with the elves, they are looked down upon. Dwarves are treated like second-class citizens, and any attempt to fight back results in severe punishment. Julius takes advantage of this, continuing to insult them as he sits down to order food and drinks. The atmosphere in the tavern becomes hostile. Will slowly takes off his apron and heads toward Julius's table. He's had enough of their mocking and decides to stand up for his friends. Julius isn't intimidated at all and lifts his leg to kick the plate of food at Will. Will isn't deterred. If anything, it fuels his rage even more. He thinks about the food, prepared with the hard work and wisdom of the dwarves who struggle daily for survival. Despite being labeled as barbarians, the dwarves are far better than elves like Julius, who only care about themselves. Julius's lackeys see the anger on Will's face and get up, ready to fight. They underestimate him since he has no magical abilities, but Will quickly grabs them and slams them to the ground, knocking them out cold. Julius, amused but irritated, casts an ice spell throughout the tavern. Will manages to break down the icicles and fight back for a while. He dodges attacks and narrowly escapes the ice, but soon he's surrounded on all sides, backed into a wall. Rosti and the dwarves are trapped behind ice pillars and can't help. They try to climb over but fail. Julius casts another spell that forms 2 big ice structures, pinning Will's arms against the wall. Julius, intent on ending Will's life, casts an ice rose on his chest to freeze his heart. But seeing the determination in Will's eyes, he decides to make it a public challenge. He announces that Will should compete against him in the upcoming Grand Magic Festival. Will gathers his strength and breaks out of the ice bonds, his rage burning hotter than ever. He accepts the challenge. The day of the Grand Magic Festival arrives, and the headmaster signals the start with spectacular fireworks. Magic Tower scouts are present in the audience, looking to recruit talented students. The first event is a dragon race through the sky, where competitors pass hoops to score points. Leanna wins the race easily, setting a new record. The principal watches with Iris, the secret agent. As the sky race ends, Iris leaves to resume her act as a naive student and cheer on Will. Meanwhile, Cyan is gearing up for the next competition. Earlier, Colette had asked him to join their team, and he's been on cloud 9, thinking Colette has finally chosen him over Will. But when he enters the locker room, he's shocked to see Colette next to Will. He throws a tantrum, demanding to know why the magicless loser is there. Colette explains that a team needs 21,000 credits to participate in the next event, and Cyan's credits are essential to reach that number. Cyan is unhappy and questions why he should be dragged along with someone like Will. Julius, passing by, gives Will a nasty smirk. Cyan can tell that Will's attention is on Julius, which infuriates him further. He thinks Will is trying to humiliate him by ignoring him and being a rival to a top talent like Julius. Soon, the main event, the Crown Attack, begins. The arena is transformed into a replica of the lost elven world with various terrains, volcanoes, marshlands, grasslands, and forests. Teams start from the edge of the transformed area and race to the center to claim the crown. They'll face dangerous terrains, traps set by professors, and be allowed to fight and obstruct other teams, making the event ruthless. The host hypes up the different teams, especially those led by Julius and Wignall, who are top contenders. He then points to Will, Colette, and Cyan's team, the least popular team, and everyone mocks Will for trying to participate in the main event. As the teams head to their starting points, Professor Werkner is astonished to see Will joining as well. The professor questions why Will is participating in such a dangerous event. Will apologizes, saying that even if he becomes a laughingstock, he wants to win at all costs. As the event starts, all contestants rush toward the central arena, immediately encountering their first obstacle, a golem army. Will charges at the golems head first, and the audience laughs, certain he'll fail. He asks Colette to support him with her earth magic. She casts a spell to give him a metal gauntlet. With the increased power, Will punches a golem so hard that it flies and crashes into a drone camera, causing the arena screens to explode. The crowd can't believe their eyes as Will keeps clobbering golems. Colette tells Cyan that as long as Will uses the magic gauntlet, they're not breaking any rules. Cyan, however, can't shake the memory of Will saving him from the giant monster. The humiliation of being saved by someone he thought inferior is crystal clear in his mind. To overcome the shame, Cyan worked hard to become stronger but now realizes Will is still miles ahead. Will's team clears the first obstacle and moves to the next zone, where magic boxes shoot rock bullets at them. Will punches the ground with the gauntlet, creating a wall to block and deflect the rocks. He runs ahead, and Colette uses another spell to create dozens of swords on the ground. Will picks up the swords and throws them at the magic cubes, taking them down one by one with incredible precision. As all the cubes explode midair, one rolls down, and Will grabs a sword to slash it just in time, clearing the second trap with ease. The audience's views shift, with even some of the haters starting to think Will is amazing. Some still believe it's only because of Colette's magic. Even Edward acknowledges that Will has perfected his fighting style through dungeon exploration, making him unbeatable by this level of traps. Will's team leads the pack, moving ahead at full speed while other teams struggle with the various traps. Julius and his team are making good progress, but it's Julius who's doing all the heavy lifting. He freezes monsters and traps, then tells his teammates to focus on finding the other teams. His teammates inform him that Will's team is in the lead, and at this rate, they might win. Julius can't let that happen, so he decides to ditch his team and handle his rival himself. Meanwhile, Will and his team reach the Enchanted Forest, the final zone they need to clear before reaching the arena. Dozens of magic circles pop up in the forest. Will figures out that they're planning to attack in a straight line. He quickly cuts the land beneath the magic circles and tosses them into the air before they can activate. The circles shoot their attacks at each other and blow up in midair. The host is impressed with Will's quick thinking and asks Edward for his opinion on the trap he designed. The Snape ripoff is quite disappointed. As Will plans to ambush Julius in the forest, an ice attack almost hits him. The attack pierces his robe and explodes behind Colette, who looks ahead to see Julius already there. Will is stunned that Julius could outpace their speed run tactic on his own. His mind is racing with questions about how Julius got here so fast and where his teammates are. But there's no time to ponder as Julius starts his attack, bombarding Will with relentless ice magic. Will can only dodge as the whole area turns into an ice ring. Suddenly, the temperature rises, and the ice melts away. Cyan appears behind Will, covered in flames that vaporize all the ice. He's had enough of playing second fiddle to someone who doesn't even have magic and decides to turn up the heat. He chants a powerful spell that Colette recognizes and warns Will to move. Not fast enough to react, Colette uses her magic to create a wall in front of Will, just as Cyan fires his devastating attack. The attack shakes the entire area, and Will is saved only because of the earth wall. As the dust settles, Will finds the entire forest burned away and Julius nowhere to be seen. Will is still processing what just happened, but Colette knows Cyan attacked both Julius and Will on purpose. She asks Cyan what he's doing, and he tells her to shut up because he's done listening to her. He tells Will it's time to settle their conflict once and for all. Will tries to say it's not the time, but Cyan attacks him, calling him a loser who needs to be crushed. Colette tries to stop them, but Julius suddenly blocks her way with an ice wall. She's puzzled about how Julius survived Cyan's bombardment. Julius attacks her, and Will gets worried as he realizes Colette is in danger. But he has no time to help her as Cyan keeps attacking him. Who tells him it's time to fight or be crushed. Will reluctantly grabs his sword, ready to battle Cyan and hopefully bring him to his senses. Years ago, when Will and Cyan first started at the academy, Will was the most pathetic kid around. People bullied him and stuck notes saying he was worthless. Cyan was disgusted and decided to help the pitiful boy. He burned the note and offered Will a chance to become his underling, so he wouldn't feel alone and useless. But Will ignored him and walked away, annoying Cyan. Cyan followed him, shook him, and demanded an answer. Will told him to let him go, and Cyan could only obey. After hurting Cyan's ego, Cyan began to hate Will. He now attacks Will with magic spells that burn the forest. Will hides behind trees, but Cyan's attacks force him out into the open. Cyan uses a fire whip, and as Will tries to deflect it, another whip grabs him by the leg. Just as he cuts the fire whip to free himself, Cyan attacks with another powerful spell. Will manages to block it, but his sword is getting red hot. Cyan curses him, asking if he'll just jump around and not fight back. Will refuses, saying they're teammates and he has no time to fight because he's focused on the competition. Cyan decides to just burn him to ashes and attacks again. Will dodges the attacks and wonders if he really has to fight his teammate now. Everyone in the stadium is dumbfounded by the scene, and Edward smirks, saying that fighting among teammates is the worst thing they can do in the competition. He believes this will make scouts from the tower view Will and Cyan negatively, and he seems to be enjoying it. The scouts had seen some promise in Cyan, but now they think he's unfit for recruitment. Will's roommate, Rosti, is worried about him. Suddenly, Iris shows up and asks if she can sit next to Rosti. They know each other from previous encounters, and Rosti is shocked when Iris starts cheering for Will. Iris admits she wasn't interested in Will at first, but after seeing him in action, she's become his biggest fan. Meanwhile, Colette is running away from Julius, trying to find a way to reach Will and Cyan. Julius teases her, asking if the famed Earth Princess isn't going to fight back. Colette hates that nickname and tells Julius to stop calling her that. Julius attacks with ice magic, and Colette blocks it with a stone wall. But then, she notices a magic circle under her feet and realizes she's walked into a trap. A massive amount of dark magic hits her point blank, shocking everyone. Even more shocking is that Julius appears on every screen, facing all the teams at once. No one understands what's happening as Julius seems to be everywhere. He goes to face Wignall's team, reminding him of his promise to crush everyone with his secret weapon. Wignall greets him with a familiar spell, returning the ice flower Julius had once given him. The flower distracts Julius, and a magic circle opens at his feet. Suddenly, he's engulfed in a tornado. It turns out it was just a clone Julius made with ice and magic stones, and it gets destroyed by Wignall's attack. Everyone is amazed by Wignall's performance, but Philly, one of the leaders of the elf faction, thinks Wignall is just average and barely meets their expectations. She asks her partner, Lay, if she can return to their base because the festival atmosphere feels like slow and painful poison to her as she is an introvert. Lay refuses, saying they must watch the entire festival and report to their master, the elf Maya Vander. Meanwhile, the audience wonders who will win the competition. They thought Will's team would win, but now Cyan's sabotage has thrown that into question. Will's classmates are curious about why Cyan did this, and even Will is wondering why the redhead is so fixated on him. He remembers the bullying he endured and how he was treated like a failure. He was numb from the harassment and just wanted to be left alone. When Cyan approached him, he asked to be let go, not understanding Cyan's intentions. Cyan shot a fireball at him out of frustration. Now, Cyan is attacking him in the same way. Will dodges the attacks and starts running. Cyan then chants a high-level spell, creating a flaming falcon as his guardian. Will is stunned and even more shocked when Cyan commands the falcon to attack, as guardians are usually used for defense. Will reacts quickly, using his sword as a platform to jump and cut the falcon's wing. He then grabs his sword and rushes towards Cyan, thinking it's his chance to end the battle. But the flame falcon quickly regenerates its wing and begins chasing after him. Will realizes he needs to destroy the Guardian's core to stop it, but it's easier said than done. He's exhausted, but Cyan doesn't look any better. Everyone, including Edward, is stunned by Cyan's performance. Commanding a Guardian with such skill shows he's far beyond an ordinary student. Even the scouts from the Fire faction are interested in him, despite his betrayal. According to their data, Cyan was weaker than the top 3 students of this batch, but today's performance has surprised everyone. The scout leader thinks there must be a reason behind his breakthrough and decides to inform the Flame Maya Vander immediately. Back on the battleground, Will is on his knees, realizing that Cyan has become much stronger. Cyan taunts him, asking if this is all he's got since he was much stronger when fighting the giant monster. Will asks why Cyan is doing all this because there's no reason to fight. Cyan snaps, asking if Will can really say that after everything that's happened between them. He asks Will if he has no anger or hatred inside him after being bullied all these years. Will admits he's angry and hates Cyan, but right now they need to defeat Julius. Hearing Julius's name makes Cyan lose his temper. He curses Will for focusing on everything else but him. He tells Will to stop ignoring him. Will suddenly understands why Cyan is acting so oddly. He realizes that Cyan has acknowledged him and now wants to be acknowledged in return. Will puts on his action glasses, takes his stance, and prepares to respect Cyan's feelings by giving it his all. Cyan is pleased that Will is taking him seriously and starts chanting his most powerful spell, while the Flame Falcon covers him. Will knows he can't succeed with any half-baked attacks, so he decides to watch Cyan's spell timing and then counterattack. Suddenly, Cyan commands his guardian to attack and shoots dozens of fireballs at once. Will is taken aback by the scale of the attack, but he's already seen the attack paths. He rushes ahead with full speed, dodging the fireballs effortlessly. He emerges from the flames and slashes the Flame Falcon's core before heading straight for Cyan. Cyan attacks him at close range, but before their attacks can hit, a stone wall appears right between them, stopping them in their tracks. Will bangs his head on the wall and falls down as Colette shows up, telling them to stop fighting. Her clothes are in tatters after her battle with Julius, and she says she kicked Julius's butt, but then he suddenly vanished. Cyan is a bit slow to react, but he gets flustered and tells Colette it's indecent to walk around in such clothes. Colette calls him out the misogynistic pig for judging her by her clothes and reminds him that it's his fault for starting the fight. She then tells Will to rush ahead because he has a score to settle with Julius, while she handles things here. Cyan says he won't let her get in the way of his fight, but Colette lashes out at him for being selfish and clueless. Suddenly, Will places his robe on Colette and thanks her, making her blush with embarrassment. Will grabs his sword and runs off, telling Cyan they'll continue their fight another time. Meanwhile, Julius and his team are the first to enter the stadium. The host thinks there's no one who can stop them from taking the throne. Suddenly, Will bursts into the stadium at lightning speed, landing with a bang right behind Julius and his team, leaving everyone speechless. Will locks eyes with Julius and challenges him to a fight. Julius was just waiting for this moment. The story will be continued in future videos. Thanks for watching. See you in the next one.